Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast, where we discuss what's happening in the cryptosphere and trading on earth as it is in heaven. Buckle up and huddle on while we dive in and get weird. Here are your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
Good morning, Cryptonauts. Welcome to Mystic Monday. What's going on today, Kim?
You ask every time, and every time I say, not a whole lot, Josh.
Maybe it's true, except for I know that you actually do have a lot going on.
I do have a lot going on. Nothing that I care to share on the podcast.
I understand that as well.
We do have a lot going on. I will say there's been a lot of activity in the whole cryptosphere, and even more so than just us personally being convicted about things. Just things are getting tossed around, and it's really kind of made us have some conversations about how to move forward, which is going to be the topic for today. But before then, as promised, we're going to do things a little differently with market updates. Just in November. So if you remember, last year, November was like the all-time high for crypto in general, the markets as a whole. So we're going to be expanding some of our market updates so you can have a broader view. And that is starting today. And you might be shocked by some numbers, because we were.
We were indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to kick it off?
Sure. Okay. So we have just our normal stuff. We've got Bitcoin down basically 1% in 24 hours, still down 21.5% over 7 days. We have Ethereum up 0.3% over 24 hours, down 21% in 7 days. The biggest mover in the top 100 is KuCoin. It's the KCS, the native token for the KuCoin exchange, is up 27% in 24 hours, but it's down 22% in 7 days. And then I put a couple honorable mentions. We've got the Cronos coin, which is the native token for the crypto.com exchange, is up 15% in 24 hours, but down 41% over 7 days.
Wow.
And then lastly, Solana. And the reason I put this on here is because somehow they are connected to the financial institution that loaned FTX a bunch of money. And so because that firm is now losing, I think, hundreds of millions of dollars, it has impacted the price of Solana. So they're down 3.6% over 24 hours, which doesn't sound that bad, but they are down 58.7% in 7 days. So they have certainly felt an impact from the FTX thing, which most have. Now, the new aspect that we wanted to bring into this are a couple 1-year numbers. And I don't know if we'll put this on every single update, but I think every once in a while it's interesting to check on that. And like Kim said, a year ago in November was the all-time highs for basically every crypto. So I'm sure many of you can imagine where these numbers are going to land. But we'll start with Bitcoin. 1 year ago to today, it is down 74.4%. Ethereum 1 year down 73.5%. KuCoin 1 year down 67.5%. Cronos 1 year down 82.6%. Solana 1 year has to be the champion, 94.3%
Down. That one, we played this fun little game when we were setting this up. I was like, Josh, you want to take a guess at how far down Solana is? And he didn't come up with anything, but we have this shared document, and I started typing it in, negative 94.3%, and he literally was like,
Yeah. It's interesting. And you put something else on here that I think is really worth at least bringing up, having a conversation about. The global market cap on November 14th, exactly a year ago, was 3 trillion and some change.
Mhm.
Today, it's, or I guess that's not today, it's
No, today
Friday.
is listed there.
Okay. Um 900. Oh, there it is. I see. 865 billion. 865 billion from 3 trillion. That's massive.
That's massive. However, I will also say this. I only found one date, and it was like a couple days before November 14th, that had a higher global market cap last year.
Right.
So this was like the pinnacle.
The peak, yeah.
The all-time high, it just happens to be exactly a year ago, and we just continue to hit some devastating points with the markets now. But overall, it's down almost 71% over a year. So the global market cap, that includes all the coins, everything listed on the crypto exchanges, right? But I find it interesting. So first of all, Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're down 74.4% and 73.5%. And the global market cap is down 70.85. They're real consistent with one another.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to see, even with all of Ethereum's going to proof of stake and their whole transition from ETH to ETH 2.0 and the splitting of things and everything, it's still real standard. Like, I don't see a whole lot of deviation from norms. And I think people thought it was going to break off and kind of become its own thing and soar on its own, and it just kind of hasn't. So it's following trends too. The other thing I found really interesting was the amount of trading volume from a year ago to right now. So a year ago, it was 111 billion in trading volume, in that on the 14th of November. I only have the information for the 11th of November this year, but it's at almost 102 billion. So the difference is minimal in the amount that's being traded on a daily basis. However, the valuation is significantly lower.
Right. I think that that's worth noting. It isn't that the transactions, the buying and selling, are significantly different. It's that the perceived value is significantly different. And I used perceived value because I think that's the correct term. Um, and this is why. In 2021 and 2022, early 2022, there was this massive social media push for crypto. People were like, screw the system. You had the GameStop, Dogecoin, like you had all these people running to crypto. And it was emotionally based, like we've seen the market be forever. But if you take away 2021 and the first half of 2022 off of the chart, you still have a fairly consistent, steady climb of crypto's valuation. Like if you just cut that chunk out where it spikes way up and spikes way down, and you squeeze them together, you would have a consistent, steady climb.
I
And
agree. I'm looking at it right now, and on the 13th of November 2020, the global market cap was at 475 billion. Today
right,
we're at 865 billion.
yeah. So you take away that huge social media push, that huge frenzy into things, and you still have a pretty consistent, sustainable growth. And I would say that that number probably more so represents those who truly believe in crypto. And I think the 2021 represents the mass population dipping their toe in something.
Hmm.
And so, yes, I think it's a picture of where things could go if mass adoption continues to improve or is consistent. But I think that more so it's a picture of emotion. There's something else I wanted to point out. So you know how Twitter now has for $8 a month you can buy your verification. And kind of the intent of that is to stop trolls or fake accounts because it's unlikely that people are going to really want to pay to have a fake account or just account that they just are total trolls on. That's at least part of the reason. There's multiple layers, and I think it's amazing because most of social media is all about you. The person is actually the product that's being sold to advertisers, and if you, the person, start paying for something instead of being the product, you become the user, and I think that's amazing. Um,
Agreed.
but anyways, the point of that, there was a tweet by a fake Lockheed Martin account that had paid for verification. Um, that said something along the lines of, "We're no longer going to sell weapons technology to the United States until the human rights violations are researched." And Lockheed Martin stock took a nosedive because we live in a day and age where Twitter is considered news, where I won't say Twitter, I'll say social media is considered your trusted news outlet for correct information that isn't second guessed, that isn't verified.
Mhm.
And it's based on emotion. I think it's crazy that investors believed a defense contractor would no longer sell weapons to the largest buyer of war machines, and that they would announce that on Twitter, that that would be the way that they release that information to their shareholders.
Mhm.
But it just shows that the market moves on emotion. The market moves on emotion and news rather than facts. And I think that that's when you look at the crypto stuff and you take away the news and the emotion of 2021. You have all these people pent up from the pandemic, lockdown. You give them free money from the government and they're go crazy. You take
Mhm.
that away, and what you see is people who actually believe in the product, people who actually believe in this system, this ecosystem, this development, and you see that it's continually having growth. That's significant. That's something to pay attention to. You take away the news, the emotion, the excitement, and you actually have truth, I think, or at least closer to truth.
Mhm.
Um, and it's crypto positive. Like it's a good that looking at that picture is a good picture of crypto. Looking at crypto from this 1 year mark where Bitcoin's down 74%, that's not so good. And I'll
Right.
be honest, I bought some Bitcoin a year ago. I bought some other crypto a year ago and I wrote it down 74%. But I think that long term, looking at the picture, there's a lot of things to be excited about.
For sure. And I think we touched on this a little bit. Like, if you look at from a year ago, I mean, just the year of 2021, let's say, it looks like there was crazy exponential growth, and then we've just taken a downturn. We've talked about this. We've been in kind of a crypto winter from where it was, I don't even know that we could say it was holding steady. I'm looking at the charts and it's not holding steady. However, if we zoom out that to that 2-year mark, again, like if we're looking at 2020, November of 2020, I would still say, and I would still argue for mass adoption, because I will tell you the global market cap is right at a half of what it is now. So it was at 474. It's now at 865. Trading volume is today at 101 billion, and 2 years ago it was at 54 billion. It's almost completely doubled on both accounts. So not just price, but also in trading volume. And I think that is significant. I think that's something to look at, because once things have kind of evened out, it still is growth. We're way down from a year ago, but we're way up from 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I think that I think it's important to pay attention to those things. I also think what we're seeing a little bit with the FTX and um, these exchanges that have had significant issues is, and we've talked about this a lot, but they're running things the way that the old financial system ran things.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I specifically believe in crypto because at its core, at its foundation, it's different. And let me be more specific. Bitcoin at its core is different. Some of the other ones were built to mirror and function like the normal financial system.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bitcoin white paper compared to the non-existent white paper of the Federal Reserve are completely different. Their foundations are completely different. And I think I think one of the things we're seeing is these things that are built on top of this system, on top of this foundation, that they're trying to make it look like the old thing when it's built on the foundation of the new thing, and it's crumbling. Can't
Mm-hmm.
stand on
I
it.
can't stand. Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to lose their money. I don't want anyone to have their crypto held on one of these exchanges that fails. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not for the downfall of these things. But it's it's trying to build something on a foundation that it was never meant to hold it. And I it's a hard lesson.
Mm-hmm.
It's a costly lesson. But if people really step back and say, well, man, that's never what Satoshi meant for Bitcoin to function like. Maybe I should try it the way it was created to function. Maybe it'll work better. It's kind of like we talk a lot about going back to original intent for things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where my heart is with Bitcoin, is to go back to the original intent for it, not to make it one of these crypto exchanges that functions exactly the way my Bank of America bank does.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Had a couple thoughts. Number one, I was just thinking about, and let me just say first, guilty, but I was thinking about some of these exchanges that are essentially centralized. Like when you have to do KYC, so the know your customer stuff to purchase something and then you hold it there, it is essentially a centralized agency. Like it's centralized. It just is. They're making the transaction on your behalf. They're verifying who you are. And I understand all of that within the scope of the old system. Totally understand it. Little fact about me, I ran a compliance system for a financial company for years and years and years. I wrote the policies, I did the trainings, I was certified in this and that. So I get regulation, I get why it's there, especially in the old system. In the new system, when we talk about decentralization and all of that, I think it's kind of funny that we would go to then a centralized organization to then buy even DeFi coins, like these coins that are built on decentralization that we then buy on a centralized exchange. It's just kind of funny, right? We really are like, what is it? As the dog returns to its vomit or whatever.
Right.
Right. It's kind of like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're like, well, can we do this new thing, but the old way? Can we do that?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember what my other point was going to be. I have no idea, but that was one of my points.
Yeah. We'll probably talk about this more at some point, but I think what I I do think at least something I've been really passionate about lately is pursuing the new, pushing into the new thing that's going on and not allowing it to make the old attempt to make the new thing fit into the old box. I mean, there's the new wine, old wineskins. There's the foundation comments. There's the dog returning to the vomit. Like, there's all these things about this that we're experiencing, but it's something to pay attention to. These are conversations worth having of, hey, I don't know exactly what the new thing looks like either, but I'm not willing to try and push it into the old things box. That will get us somewhere.
Yeah,
That will get us to a new future.
I agree. I just asked Josh earlier today to keep reminding me of this because that also really drives me, but it's not as much of a song to sing for me. It's like what I need to be reminded of.
Mm,
And constantly, because I'm imperfect in many ways. I'm often trying to fit it back into a box that I'm comfortable with.
right.
When I know, and I'm very aware, and I am bought in for the new, it just is easy to revert back. We've talked about a bit with the Israelites when they were led out of Egypt and then going to the promised land and how it took them 40 years to go a short amount of distance, and how it had to be because they had to be led out of the old and could not bring the old into the new. And this was a way that made them leave the old behind and not be able to bring it in. And even in that, I was just thinking, we've had a couple conversations about this. I don't know if it's just you and me who've had conversations. I think we had a conversation with Herman too. But there's a tendency in humankind to make something into an idol. Whether it's super obvious, they build a golden calf like the Israelites did in the wilderness, right? To some other god because they can't see what's in front of them, whatever. But I think even in modern times, we see some of these things like the FTX stuff that happens. There are these people who get put up on this pedestal as the leader and the genius behind this, and people put their faith in that person as opposed to I don't know the value of the technology or of this other system. And so when they put that person up there, that person is still imperfect as well, right? and
Yeah.
has the ability to fall. And one of the beautiful things I think about Bitcoin, and I don't know any other coins that are like this. I don't know any other technology out there that's like this. Satoshi Nakamoto, as far as anyone can tell, it's a pseudonym and nobody knows the person who's behind it.
Right.
This white paper was written by somebody and released into the world with no intention of getting the credit. It is for the pure ability to get this new technology, this new system, this new way of exchanging value out and available for people to use without having to have the accolades. And I think that's why, in the end, it is the best option as we're being led into the new. Just from a worldly perspective, it's the best option because we can't put the credit on somebody. We can't put somebody in this position of an idol because there's nobody to put there. You know, there's been multiple people who have come out and said that they're Satoshi, which is also kind of funny because then you have to question what are their motives,
Right.
you know? But I think
Yeah.
this is a beautiful thing with Bitcoin. But when we look at some of the exchanges, they have certain people behind them. I mean, Binance, the biggest exchange in the world, has CZ, who is a very well-known person, at least in the crypto world, on Twitter, on some of these other platforms. Like, he's the face of that company. But if he falls, chances are the company will suffer.
Oh.
Regardless of the technology or the integrity behind the company. If the face of it falls, it will affect the whole.
Yeah, and Bitcoin doesn't have that doesn't have that. So the only thing we can judge Bitcoin on is actually what it is. And that's a very unique position. And I don't know if it'll always be like that because there is technically a wallet that's connected to who people believe Satoshi is, where he gave himself a certain amount of Bitcoin. So if that wallet is ever moved or used, people may have an indication of who it is. But at least for now, we can't base it off of somebody's lifestyle choices or verbiage or character or what kind of car they drive, where they live, what they said, what they believe about XYZ. We can only base our opinion of it on what it is. And that is such a unique position.
It really is, especially in the age of social media and everyone communicating everything all the time,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think to some other technologies, like, nobody knows who invented the wheel. Nobody needs to know. Nobody questions it. It's a wheel and it works and it's a simple machine and it's very valuable.
Mm,
We all take advantage of it because it's old news.
right.
But does there need to be a person attached to it for us to find value in it? There doesn't. And for us to, like, take it and improve upon it and have it better our lives. But I think that's kind of where we are with Satoshi and Bitcoin. It's just so out of the ordinary these days. You know what I mean? Like, everybody gets credit for everything they do, you know?
Mm,
I mean, who made the biggest pizza in the world? I don't know, but somebody does.
yeah. Right. Yeah. I think that those are I think where we're going, it's needed that we start to learn to evaluate things based on what they are rather than who introduced them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really what has value.
Right. And that's really what's going to help drive us to mass adoption, like we're talking about,
Right.
right? Can this succeed based on what it actually is and not necessarily based on who created it or who wrote the paper or I don't know, tweeted the most about it. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing with this, and I don't mean to open this can of worms, we don't have to talk about it a lot, but spiritually, this has been kind of a big theme with us too. And this is why I am asking Josh, like, remind me of this, remind me of this, remind me of this, because truly at least in our walks, we've heard a lot of similar things in the direction in which we're supposed to go with this. And we believe we know who that's from. We know the source of those words and we believe them. But we can get distracted from it too. But I really believe that when we're looking at the Father and he's saying, I have something new for you. I don't want to be like the Israelites and have to like trudge through the wilderness for 40 years before I finally get it. So I need those reminders, like stop looking at the old, stop trying to fit it into the old and like be open to what is new. It's okay if it doesn't fit these parameters. It's okay if you're not comfortable in it. But I need that reminder. And I know, at least with some of this stuff, like I know what the source was. I know it is, for me, it is the creator of all things. It is my Father. It is the beginning and the end. Like it is, that's who the source is for me. And I know I trust it. It's just, do I remember to always follow it? And so I appreciate you for the reminder. And I still am going to need it next week. So
Yes. I think probably all of us have these reminders that we need to hear over and over and over. So.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining our conversation today. As always, feel free to reach out on social media or email or upperroomcd.com for coaching or just comments, questions, merchandise. It's all available. We will see you guys in a few days.
We'll see you. Thank you for listening. Join us every Monday and Thursday as we discuss trading on earth as it is in heaven. If you want to connect further, follow us on social media at market.mystics for Instagram and TikTok, and search for Market Mystics on YouTube and Facebook. If you still need more, follow the link on Facebook to book a coaching appointment. Until next time, see ya.